Morning.
Hi Neil, how are you?
What's interesting about your call is that I've had many other ones and texts as well from people with regards to misdiagnoses. And
yes.
whatever set of medics read your son's MRI, the consultant who then gave instructions for his medication didn't read the MRI. And without your intervention, your son would have been in hospital for weeks being pumped with antibiotics.
That's right. There was a big miscommunication between doctors and us. It just didn't seem right. Our consultant that was dealing with us didn't actually check our son's MRI. It was somebody else and relayed the message to him, which we didn't know at the time. It was only when I questioned it, they brought somebody else in to double check the MRI. The consultant at the time had gone home for the evening because it was Good Friday. When I went back up to the hospital that evening, I left my husband with my son. I went home to pack a bag for him because we were preparing for quite a long stay. He came running in behind me in his normal clothes. Obviously, he'd gone home, been called back in. And he said, "I'm very sorry." And I said, "Okay, can you just explain again what's after happening? Because it just doesn't seem right." And he said, "No, we've made a mistake." And I said, "Okay, what's the mistake?" He said, "Your son doesn't have what they told us he had. They told us he had osteomyelitis, which is quite a serious bacterial infection in the bone marrow. Now, this would show up in a blood test immediately. There would be elevated markers. It's a quite serious infection requiring hospital stay, antibiotics, and it would show up in an MRI. It would show little lesions on the bone, which he was MRI'd on his knee." So he said, "No, I'm very sorry. I actually didn't read your MRI. Somebody else did, relayed the message to me, and I told you what was found." So immediately we were relieved because obviously our son was fine. We got to go home in 48 hours. They immediately stopped all the antibiotics in the drip because he was on a heavy course of antibiotics every 4 to 6 hours.
And he's only 5, isn't he? 5
He was only 5, small little boy.
And he actually only had a virus as opposed to, having blood tests for leukemia and stuff like that.
That's the immediate. When we went in initially, he was presenting with unexplained leg pain. So he was a very active boy into all sorts of sports and woke up 2 days previous, couldn't move or bend his leg, in pain, limping. So our GP said, "Go in, get tests, we'll send them in." They did. They were amazing, fantastic nurses, sorted, all the blood tests. Blood tests came back, all clear. But when we went in first, one of the doctors said, initially when a child is presenting with unexplained limb pain, nothing else seems to be wrong. We are testing for 2 things, which is osteomyelitis and leukemia. And we went, okay, it was a bit of a shock. Our son was completely healthy.
But then you'd want the checks done, wouldn't you? But
absolutely. They took him apart. They really did. They did everything they could for him. And then when the blood test came back, they said, "No, he's absolutely perfect. There's nothing on paper that says he's anyway sick, but there is something showing up on an MRI." So we said, "Oh God, maybe it's a fraction, maybe it's something we've missed," and we kept asking.
So what did they start treating him for?
They said he had osteomyelitis.
What's that?
Now, this is, I only knew what this was because it popped straight into my head because I was at the time studying with CNM, so I was in my biomedicine year and I had just finished this module, so I immediately went, but the blood tests are clear. Osteomyelitis is a bacterial infection in the bone marrow, which would result from someone maybe with diabetes that's injecting, the bacteria would get into the bone through an injection site, or if they fracture the bone, that bacteria would get into the blood, into the bone. It goes through the bloodstream into the bone marrow. And my son doesn't have diabetes. He hasn't had a fracture. He's not, doesn't use intravenous drugs. There is no way technically this could happen.
Right.
So I said, okay. Yeah, I said, okay, Tim, but blood tests are showing no elevated ESR, CRP levels. Nothing is indicating that he has an infection. And the consultant said, "Oh, well, this can happen."
So anyway, without getting overly technical about it, they started treatment and intravenous drugs and all sorts of high-dose antibiotics. What lesson did you learn from this then, where when you questioned it, they checked again and said, "We were wrong, you were right"?
Well, I was very lucky because I only questioned it really because I had been studying it. I would have just gone, okay, I believe what you're telling me.
So he'd have been in there 2 or 3 weeks being pumped with different drugs and antibiotics.
Yeah, because I did keep questioning the consultant. I did say, I just don't, it doesn't make sense to me. I said, tell me if I'm wrong, but what I'm learning, this isn't a diagnosis for osteomyelitis. There has to be something.
I know, it's just a worry that, if you park this and just look at everybody else's situation, how many other people are being misdiagnosed and treated for stuff that they never... But, like what lesson is to be learned, really? Like, is it that the health system is just overworked and staff are overstretched and they can't give the care and attention that they would want to give to each and every patient?
I think so. And, I mean, we were heading into the weekend as well. And people might have wanted to go home. You know, it was late in the day on Good Friday. And it was just to double check, especially, I know with anyone, but with a child, and you were putting them under a lot of antibiotic, a high antibiotic course, you need to be sure what you're doing. And we were very lucky that he wasn't seriously ill, but if he was, it needed to be double checked. And we ordered the blood test to be double checked to make sure that they weren't wrong giving us the information that he was okay. I said we need everything to be, it just needed to be double checked. The consultant should have read the MRI himself and told us, not got someone else to do it.
And taken that as gospel. Okay, thank you, Shirley, appreciate that.
Thank you.